This week in game news, SteamWorld Heist was released by Image & Form, Bethesda Game Studios opened a new development studio in Montreal, Canada, and they're hiring. The HTC Vive's release, that is, Valve's VR headset, has been delayed to April of 2016. Minecraft's coming to the Wii U, and it's not full-featured. Bastion was released on the PlayStation Vita. The PS4 was the best-selling console in the US in November of 2015. Tickets went on sale for PAX Australia, which runs from November 4th to 6th, 2016. Episode 4 of Republique is being released next week. Planet Cubed has been renamed Stellar Overload, and as per usual, we have a whole bunch of cool game trailers to show and releases to share. This is the Blackman and Robin Game News Update. To start with, the PlayStation Experience happened this week. It's essentially a big marketing event for the PlayStation platforms. A whole bunch of neat things were announced. Here are our top 5 announcements from the PlayStation Experience. Beginning with the most exciting announcement, the Final Fantasy VII Remake we saw half a year ago is still being worked on. The trailer showed off the revamped gameplay in the remake. It now more closely resembles the modern Final Fantasy games. Also, Square Enix later announced that the Final Fantasy VII Remake will be released across a multi-part series. While some Final Fantasy games have gotten direct sequels, Final Fantasy XIII was a trilogy, the last part of which was released on Steam this week, Final Fantasy VII was originally a single release on the PlayStation 1. Perhaps episodic releases are the new norm for longer games. Personally, I'm glad that Final Fantasy VII is being remade. Though I confess to not having played the original game, I do know that it's well loved and something I should probably play at some point in my life. If you can't wait to play the remake but don't own the original game, despair not. The original is available on Steam for PC and, as of this week, was just released on the PlayStation 4.
Okay, let's move.
Number 2 is the PlayStation VR title Golem, which got a lovely teaser trailer. In development by Highwire Games, you play as a child who's been gravely injured and is stuck at home dreaming of the world outside. You're not totally stuck, however. You gain the ability to create golems to see the world around you, starting first with little doll-sized ones, and eventually moving on to creating stone giants to explore lost cities. I love the concept of the game, and virtual reality seems like the perfect platform for it. Destiny fans got an interesting treat from the PlayStation Experience. The Sparrow Racing League was unveiled. Released on December 8th, 2015, it's a racing mode for anybody who owns the Taken King DLC. I have not played it, but I have heard from Destiny fans who have. What they're saying is that it's the best update to hit the game in a while. It's a real departure from the rest of the gameplay, and it's rather reminiscent of the fantastic Star Wars pod racing game that was on the Nintendo 64. As mentioned before, the Sparrow Racing League is available for anybody who owns the Taken King, not just PlayStation 4 users. The fourth big announcement? A new character was unveiled for the upcoming Street Fighter V. Fang, as he's called, has long-range attacks and the ability to poison opponents, making him a formidable foe. Capcom also confirmed that Alex, Guile, Ibuki, Yuri, and Urien would be coming to Street Fighter V in 2016. No word on if the most important character, according to my very objective opinion, Elena, is coming to the game, but I'm still holding out hope. Capcom also announced that there would be a $30 season pass for players who'd like to instantly unlock all the players in Street Fighter V. That said, these characters can also be unlocked through in-game currency earned by playing a plenty. Street Fighter V is coming to the PlayStation 4 as well as Windows.
I am Evan Pettywhisker Tildrum, King of Ding Dong Dell. Who are you?
Never mind who.
The fifth, and my personal favorite announcement from the show, is that Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom, was announced and it looks stunning. The sequel to Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, this game is an RPG with character design and other art produced in conjunction with Studio Ghibli. You may have heard of Ghibli. They're the studio behind Ponyo, Porco Rosso, and quite recently The Tale of Princess Kaguya. Revenant Kingdom is coming to the PlayStation 4 and is about King Evan Pettywhisker Tildrum, who loses his kingdom to an evil usurper and is on a journey to take it back. There's currently no release date for Ni no Kuni 2. This is definitely a game that we'll be keeping an eye on. The sixth announcement from the show that we're sharing, yes, it's a bonus announcement, we're cheating, is Zodiac or Canon Odyssey. It caught me by surprise. The aesthetic is reminiscent of Odin Sphere, and it's nice to see that in addition to coming to the PlayStation 4, it's also coming to the Vita, which, surprise, is not dead. Apparently, this RPG was already released on iOS and has gotten generally decent reviews. While the story is apparently just average, the look of the game really catches the eye. Overall, some really cool stuff was shown off at the PlayStation Experience. It's nice seeing the PlayStation VR getting so much attention, and it looks like the rumors of the Vita step were slightly exaggerated. You can watch the full keynote at blackmanandrobin.com. Also, if you're a fan of Evangelion, 100-foot robot golf is very relevant to your interests.
Sir, you can't possibly be considering activating Project C. I'm telling you, there's no way! Look at her!
We're out of time. Prepare the other pilot.
Moving on to game releases, this week, released on Steam for Windows, was Guilty Gear Xrd Xrd?
Guilty Gear Xrd.
Ah, Xrd. Anyway, this fighting game was previously released on the PlayStation 3 and 4. It got great reception from both critics and players for its visuals as well as gameplay. Just a quick heads up, you can't play online between the Steam and PlayStation versions. This is not a title that supports crossplay. Thus far, the PC version of the game has gotten pretty good reception from the fans. However, many have said that there's an issue with the keys. Specifically, they're not rebindable. Keep this in mind if custom controls are important to you.
Guilty Gear Xrd.
If racing is more your thing, Dirt Rally left early access on Steam this week, and it's looking very good. The latest game in the Dirt series, Rally has gotten good reception from players and critics, and is on track to be released on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, as well as have a physical PC release on April 5th, 2016. Something interesting about Dirt Rally is that while it was in early access, it was hailed as an example of how to do early access right. The developers released regular updates for the game, communicated with the community, and in general were clear about the product that they were developing. Personally, I'm hoping to see a post-mortem from the developers on how they tackled early access, as I feel it would be a good resource for any developers who are planning on using that model. Also released on Steam this week was Red Game Without a Great Name, a video game in which you play a steampunk bird in a dangerous world. You can teleport around in order to survive a little bit longer, but this game is promising that you will die many, many times before the end. That's not the end of the steampunk game releases this week, however. Released on the Nintendo 3DS this week was SteamWorld Heist. It's the latest game in the SteamWorld series, but it's not a sequel to the last game, SteamWorld Dig. SteamWorld Heist is something very different. SteamWorld Heist is a turn-based strategy game in which you take squads of characters on missions. Think XCOM or Fire Emblem. What sets it apart, however, is its perspective. It's a 2D platformer rather than a top-down game. When it comes time to attack, you, the player, must aim at enemy robots. This is tricky as you often have to judge by sight just where you're firing. You primarily play as Captain Piper, a steampunk robot living in a galaxy in which water is a precious commodity. You're a little bit of a pirate of pirates. You help out the local bots in different areas by hunting down pirate vessels and stealing back their ill-gotten water, picking up new gear along the way. The story of the game is rather like that of Firefly. Essentially, there's an oppressed space government that views the good guys with wary eyes. It's not a particularly story-heavy game from the few hours I've played thus far, but it has plenty of personality, which is always a plus in my book. I've been playing on the experienced difficulty level, and thus far that suits me well. Since I'm already familiar with similar games, it provides just enough challenge without being impossible. My one gripe with the game is that when you fail a mission, you lose half of your collected water, which is pretty much your money. This isn't too harsh a punishment, but it feels too inconsequential. I'm not scared of losing a mission, and that's a problem. The stakes don't really feel that high. Besides that, however, I'm having a great time with the game. Once I beat it, I'll be sure to post a review to blackmanandrobin.com, so keep an eye out for that. If SteamWorld Heist sounds like your sort of game, you should definitely check it out. While it's currently only available for the 3DS, the developers do have plans to bring it to other platforms.
Turn up the steam for the heist of the century.
For those who would like to dig, Terraria has been released on the Nintendo 3DS this week. Originally released on the PC, the game has drawn many comparisons to a 2D version of Minecraft. That said, it has done a whole lot to set itself apart. Terraria has a much bigger focus on collecting things and combat than Minecraft. Additionally, while you can and do build things in Terraria, the focus isn't quite so much there. The developers of Terraria have been absolutely wonderful at keeping the game updated. Many times they've said one last big update for the game, and many times they've come out with yet another big update for the game. If you own a 3DS and would like to get started with Terraria, you may want to check this port out. Out on the Wii U this week is Jones on Fire. Originally developed by Glass Bottom Games, it's a runner about rescuing cats from fire. Mind you, Glass Bottom Games is the studio that developed Hot Tin Roof. You can check out our review of that game over at blackmanandrobin.com. Jones on Fire is set in the same world, but it's a very different game. I've played a bit of it, and it is quite fun. If you want to save cats, check it out. If you've been waiting for Minecraft to come to the Wii U, I have some good news.
And one more thing. Minecraft is coming to Nintendo Wii U.
And some bad news for you. The good news is that the game is coming to the Wii U on December 17th, 2015. The bad news, however, is that the game is not going to employ the Wii U gamepad in any meaningful way. As per this tweet from Owen Hill, Director of Creative Communications at Mojang, the Wii U version of Minecraft will only be using the gamepad as a general controller. Its special feature, you know, being a second screen, is only going to come in handy when your television is otherwise occupied and you'd like to be playing Minecraft. While it's nice that the controller can at least be used for this, I think it's a disappointing underutilization of an incredibly creative controller. For comparison, think of how it's used for extra features in Pikmin 3 or LEGO City Undercover. In those games, the controller is used as a device that's held by your character in-game and gives access to bonus features such as maps, expanded control options, in-game communication between other characters, etc. While it's disappointing that the gamepad will be underutilized in the Wii U version of Minecraft, the Japanese eShop listing for Minecraft did make mention of support for voice chat as well as for USB keyboards. It's a crying shame that a game as big as Minecraft isn't going to be taking advantage of the Wii U's coolest feature. There has been some speculation that the reason for this is because Mojang, Minecraft's developer, is owned by Microsoft. Microsoft, in turn, has no incentive to develop extra features for a platform that isn't theirs. Whatever the case, it's a disappointment that the Wii U version of the game won't be very different from the others. What do you think? Is it really so terrible that this version's not going to stand out, or are you indifferent and planning on buying it anyway? Hit us up and follow at Blackman and Robin and let us know what you think. We'll be sure to share the best tweets on next week's episode. Speaking of lazy ports, the classic JRPG Final Fantasy VI is coming to PC. Many fans argue that this is the best game in the series. The other contenders are Final Fantasy VII and X, for 12 never gets any love. Under ordinary circumstances, I'd tell you to be excited for this, to run out and purchase this game for its fantastic story and cool soundtrack, but I cannot defend this version of Final Fantasy VI. Why? Because, simply put, it's ugly as sin. I've written about this phenomena before, about Square Enix releasing uglier versions of classic games as HD remakes, or what have you, and frankly, I'm sick of seeing them. Of course, that's not going to stop me from explaining what the problem with these games is. The issue with this version of Final Fantasy VI is that the game doesn't have a congruous art style. The sprites look like they came from one game, while the backgrounds look like they came from entirely another. Worse, many of the textures used for the backgrounds are very obviously tiled. You can see where each tile ends. That's downright sloppy. It looked ugly on mobile, and it looks ugly on PC. Admittedly, the problem isn't quite as bad in this version of Final Fantasy as it is in previous versions, such as the re-release of Final Fantasy IV, but it's still pretty bad. There's a great piece on what makes an HD remake worthwhile over at fortressofdoors.com. We'll link to that article at blackmanandrobin.com if you'd like to check it out. In crowdfunding news this week, the Smock Z hit Kickstarter. It's a SteamOS-based handheld game console that's promising at least 5 hours of battery life, and the power to play such games as Dota 2, Civilization 5, and many others. Essentially, if a game runs on SteamOS, it'll run on the Smock. Spec-wise, the device boasts 4 GB of RAM, 8 on the Pro model, a 2 GB GPU, and expandable memory via microSD cards. I love the concept of the Smock for much the same reason I love the concept of the PlayStation Vita. A powerful console capable of playing big, power-hungry games? Sign me right up. The thing is, however, I'm concerned as to how well most games would translate to a 5-inch screen. Besides the issues with user interface elements, the reason why we don't see so many ports of old, big games to handhelds and mobile devices that are capable of handling them is because those games were never designed to be played on the go in the first place. There's a whole other design language for handheld devices. Some games lend themselves better to being ported over to handheld devices better than others. Turn-based RPGs that you can pop into and out of, for example, tend to fall into this category. Strategy RPGs are absolutely perfect for handheld devices. So while I'd love to see how Dota 2 handles on Smock Z, I'm not really sure how suited the game is to the platform. Additionally, I'd like to at least see a proper prototype of the device in somebody's hands, playing the games promised. The Smock Z sounds cool, but there aren't actually any pictures of it running. All we have are some slick renders and a bit of footage in the trailer of a loose set of chips and a screen. Hopefully it's just a case of bad PR, but I'm going to hold on to my money until I'm sure that the device will ever actually exist. Currently in development by Iceberg Interactive, the upcoming strategy game Oriental Empires received a first trailer this week. Set in ancient China, it's a historical turn-based strategy game in which your goal is to establish a civilization of your own. Oriental Empires is a 4X game. If you enjoy Civilization, you'll likely have fun with it when it enters early access sometime early in 2016. Robert Smith and John Carline, 2 developers who worked on the Total War series, are taking the lead designing this game. We'll be keeping an eye on it. A trailer was released this week for LEGO Marvel's Avengers. Starring everybody's favorite Marvel heroes, the game is set to be released on January 26, 2016, and is a 3D platformer with open-world elements. If you've ever wanted to fly around a LEGO version of New York as Iron Man, this will be your opportunity. LEGO Marvel's Avengers is set to be released on the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Vita, 3DS, Wii U, Xbox One, Xbox 360, and Windows. A while back, we covered Shyness, The Lightning Kingdom, which was quite a success on Kickstarter and is still in development for platforms yet to be announced. Shyness is a 3D fantasy ARPG that's a bit reminiscent of the Tales series. Personally, I love the look of the game. According to the Kickstarter page, the game is supposed to be coming to Windows PC as well as Mac OS X. While the developers are planning on more platforms, we don't know what they are, hence platforms to be announced.
With 5 unique characters. Defeat the evil threatening the world. Restore harmony among all the civilizations. Explore, grow, fight. And discover the mystery of the Shyness. Coming 2016.
Well, that's it for this week's game news. Be sure to follow at Blackman and Robin on Twitter and Instagram for all the latest game news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own views. For links to the cool stuff that we showed off during this week's episode, be sure to visit our site blackmanandrobin.com. You can enter our Steam Key giveaway for Night Squad, but be sure to hurry. It opened last week and will be closing sometime next week.
Such as d'accord, mon ami, or voyez-vous, in order to give the character a slight francophone touch.
Return to London, mon cher Hastings.
One last word to finish. The storyline of ABC Murders follows the main outline of the book, but there are a few differences. It is important for players who know the book to have a few surprises, so that they can say, "Ah, so it isn't what I thought after all. Maybe he's the killer." We added some new leads in the game that do not exist in the book, as well as 2 alternative endings, which will depend directly on the choices made by the player.